industries. And we have Eva Murray, who's a senior evangelist from Snowflake. We have Carl Prague from Global Head of Data, IKEA Core Business Franchise. We have Marina Mona, Head of Artificial Intelligence Platform at TIM, and she's also a TEDx speaker. We have Marco Gianni Trapani, Head of Advanced Analytics for Business Insights at Roche. And we have Giuseppe Magurno, Head of AI and Other Technology Solutions in ENI. So let's get started.
Yes, and sorry, just forgot to introduce Eva Murray from Snowflake as well, is joining as panelist. Eva, can you switch on your camera, please?
It's on.
It is on.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Musa. So I think I would like to start with a little bit of introduction from our panelists about themselves and about their organization. And if you can start elaborating a little bit on the current state of AI in your organization and your vision for future. So I would start with you, Eva.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Eva Murray. I'm a senior evangelist for EMEA at Snowflake. And what we do is we power AI through the data cloud. In terms of our vision and what we do to support our customers with their AI journey, there are a few capabilities that I want to mention that hopefully resonate with a lot of you. That's to natively store and query semi-structured data without pre-processing. So that's a huge advantage for people wanting to do data science, wanting to engage with machine learning. We keep your data current with streaming and batch loading, and we help you access ready-to-use third-party data through our data marketplace, where you have the option to access those data sets to enrich your own analyses, but you can also do a private data exchange with your customers, your partners, your suppliers. And last but certainly not least, you can take huge advantage of native support for geospatial data.
Thank you, Eva. And let's listen from Marina.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. And so my name is Marina, and I work in TIM, which is the Italian telco operator. And what we've been doing in the last 4 years since the AI center has been established is to start what I call a Botox approach. So seeing the whole end-to-end situation of the company and try to make injections of AI as if it were Botox in the right parts where they are more needed and where we think that they can bring the most advantage. And at the same time, we are working in a holistic way to create the infrastructure. So the data lake, the model repository, the feature repository, and so on. So these two directions go all together, and we are trying, what we see in the future, the challenge we see in the future is the MLOps, in fact. So putting all these models that we have injected here and there all together in this big picture where all the new AI is going to be integrated. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. And let's hear from Carl.
Yeah, so in IKEA, we sell furniture. And as such, since we are working in an environment where we are active in 58 markets, in an increasingly omnichannel world, which means that the complexity is quite high. And one of the key things that AI is helping us do today is cutting down that complexity. But for a long while, we've been doing that in a way where we've been creating technical debt along the way. So we have been using AI across our business processes, but very much as islands. And now we're working very hard to create a consistent whole. And a big part of that is also creating ethics standards, because our mission and vision is to create a better everyday life for the many people. And as such, we could never, ever allow ourselves to jeopardize the ethics of IKEA as we build out AI as a central part in every process. So so that's where we are focusing now, creating a consistency, holistic environment and architecture, but also ethics is very, very central.
Thank you, Carl. Certainly, that's a very important aspect, and looks like you're on the right foot to launch a lot of innovation from there. And we'd like to hear from Giuseppe.
Hello, hi everybody. I'm Giuseppe from Italy, and I work in Eni. Eni is an Italian-based energy and oil and gas company, and but we work worldwide in more than 60 countries. My role in the organization is to identify the best AI solution, but that's not all, because I'm involved in the definition of our transformation. And the artificial intelligence is just one part of the great transformation of our industry, because we are going to transform a very traditional business like the oil and gas one, and the goal is the one of the decarbonization. Regarding the artificial intelligence, we launched in the last year a program to develop skills, but first of all, to create an internal community to identify areas of experimentation and develop prototypes, pilots. But first of all, we are going to work on our data culture, as a lot of people said in the last 2 days. And we also are working to integrate AI with other technologies, and we are going to create labs to experience with it. And regarding the future, like I always say, so I will tell that to you too, I'm not seeing in the future solutions of artificial intelligence, but applications and solutions with artificial intelligence. So our goal is to create AI functions and to spread them across the organization.
Great, thank you, Giuseppe. And I'd like to request Marco for your introduction and comments.
Yes, hi everyone. Marco Gianni Trapani. I'm based in Basel. I work for Roche, which is a pharmaceutical company. I'm still relatively new to Roche. I will describe myself, despite I've been here now a year and a half. But I would say data science and AI in a pharmaceutical company, I would say is quite an interesting aspect, because you have a part of the company like research and development, right? The clinical aspects where AI and data science, I think, is top of the art, right? You have a lot of complex algorithm for drug discovery, image recognition, which truly they are state of the art. But then as soon as you move post-clinical, right, to the value chain, which is actually the part I'm responsible for to drive, which is more the manufacturing, the commercial, the go-to-market, supply chain, that's where AI maybe has a lot to learn. So I'm responsible for data science, AI, data and platform technologies in that aspects of the company, and we are going through, yes, a transformation. It's a relatively still new team and new organization that has been set up, but more and more I think the pharma industry is realizing the importance of it in this part of the value chain. And so we're going through the usual transformation, I would say, right? So talking about processes, talking about data, and talking about technology, right? The complexity of this comes obviously that we support a variety of functions. If you put together again, marketing, sales, medical, finance, manufacturing, and so on. And we support globally different markets, different countries, which from an healthcare perspective are very different with different environments. And so given this diversity of potential use cases, that's where we're trying to navigate currently.
Thank you, Marco. It's great to see the diversity of industries across our panelists. So as you know, AI is leading in so many ways, innovations across industries, from automation for efficiency to finding new ways of doing business, engaging customers in completely new ways, and in a more predictive manner, understanding customer behavior and their propensity. Could you please provide your insights on what are the key AI-driven trends and innovations in your respective industry, and how your company is moving forward to join this journey? And I would like to start with Marina, please.
Thank you. As you said, it's really important for us to make sure to use these analytics, in fact, in order to guarantee that each customer gets the offer that they need. The problem with telcos is that we have a huge number of possible offers. You can have fixed, mobile, and phone calls, and traffic, and mobility, etc. here in a single state or abroad. So a lot of different mix of those solutions. And it's very bad for us when the customer pays for something that don't use and maybe is not buying something that would be useful for them. So this mismatch is something that we are willing to tackle and to use analytics in order to make a better match between offer and the customer needs, so that the customers are happier and they stay with us.
It's great. Customer at the center of your AI movement. That's awesome. And wanted to hear, Carl, your perspective on this.
Yeah, so we are in a point. I always view technology, data, and AI as something that enables business and not the other way around. So we're in a movement in IKEA where we are going from quite a simple model where we were one value chain. We designed the furniture, we produced the furniture, we moved it to the blue box near you, and you came and bought it. That was the way we operated for a long while, and it still is the way we operate the majority of our customer relationships. But what has happened, especially now with COVID, is that reality is becoming much more complex, and e-com and other things are playing a huge role today that it didn't do just a couple of years ago. And that has shifted from a quite simple thing to orchestrate. You know, it was still demanded a lot of excellence, operational excellence, but it was a straightforward thing to something that is quite complex. And we now have a situation that is actually a little bit like Marina's, where we are right now using AI to look at how can we approach every customer as an individual, and how can we make sure that we then fulfill that customer's needs in the way that is most economically good, best for the environment, and best for that customer. So to give you an example, if you, for example, are buying a sofa from our La Madeleine store in the center of Paris, it's actually cheaper for us to ship it to your home than to ship it to that store and then have you buy it from there. So, so that realization may make us now build AIs that can offer you free shipping, if that is the case, on the fly when you're in that store. So those kinds of going from, as we say, serving the many people as a mass to serving the many individuals every day is a big shift, and it's something we could never do without AI at the core.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carl. And we want to hear from Giuseppe, your perspective on this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. The area of greatest interest for us is the one of the analytics, where we have developed a lot of models to minimize the risk during the exploration phases, also the extraction of oil, because you can understand that it's a really big problem if a drill stops. And we also produce and sell energy, so we have a lot of forecasting of energy production, demand, and prices. Another area we are exploring with interest is the NLP, natural language processing, because we have found a lot of use cases in all our areas of business and of support. And we decided to produce a digital product, our first digital product for internal use. It will be a platform with NLP functions, but also intelligent workflow, supporting a lot of processes. We are talking about internal processing. Then I want to mention the computer vision, because an area we are putting a lot of effort in it, because it's my opinion that in the near future, computer vision should help us with a lot of use cases that are hard now. And I'm thinking a lot about operation in our plants, but also regarding safety and security of our operators.
Thank you, Giuseppe. And Marco, if you can share with us some of the trends in pharmaceuticals and how Roche is planning or already have joined this journey.
Yeah, as I say, given the long value chain that we have, I may want to focus on some of the things I'm more familiar with in terms of my responsibility, which is on the post-clinical aspects of things. And if you think about the customer engagement, again, just to give you two numbers, due to COVID, right, the HCP engagement with the patient, so the inpatient consultation dropped by 45%, according to one of the most recent study. And the engagement between our sales representative from pharmaceutical companies to HCP dropped by 65%. Okay, and that basically is changing upside down the paradigm on how we as an industry approach healthcare professionals, approach doctors, approach nurses, and so on, which was very physical, but again, it dropped by as much as 65%. So now the digital transformation is immediately coming, and I have to say we are not prepared for that, because the same studies, they also say that healthcare professionals, they're not happy with the way in which the digital pharmaceutical company, they are connecting with them. There are the same study, they say that nearly 50% of them, they are not satisfied with the digital way of interaction with the pharmaceutical industry. So I will say a big area of application of data science and AI is around customer engagement, where we go across the whole spectrum of customer engagement, right? So we do a lot of use cases focused on, for example, social listening, understanding what the customer are saying, what are their pain points, the customer journey, and so on. Strategy definitions, optimization of resources, next best action algorithm with my next best customer to go and talk to, what should be my next best channel to use, what should be my next best content to deliver to that customer for that channel. And as well as, of course, the monitoring of the impacts, right? So a lot of things like impact analytics and omni-channel optimization. These are things that are
Marco,
coming.
1 second. Sorry for interrupting you. It seems your internet connection is not so good. Can you switch off your camera? Probably to try it.
Sure,
Okay.
I will do. I apologize. Is it any better now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying that, yeah, we go through a long value of application along the customer engagement, right? So from the definition and understanding of the customer, the strategic definition of a plan, as well as a tactical implementation of our marketing or whatever campaign that is needed.
Thank you, Marco. A lot of action around customers. And we want to hear from Eva. What do you see across industries? And from a software platform like Snowflake perspective, what are the key innovation areas that you think your customers and overall the AI initiatives are focused on?
Yeah, sure. I would say there's a lot of automation out there around AI. And what we do is that we partner with market-leading automation tools that enable our customers to take advantage of the innovation around AI and help them really drive their business forward. Because there are a lot of organizations that want to do more with their data when it comes to AI, and they want to benefit from those advances in AI and data science, but they don't necessarily have the full spectrum of competencies internally that they need, or the resources to build a full team or department on their own. So what we help them do is actually leverage the tools that automate some of that process so that they can benefit from it in their, in the place where they are at right now, and we can power their AI solutions.
Thank you, Eva. So we heard a lot about the trends and about the exciting things that's happening across the industry in AI and big data. We'd like to hear a little more about what are the challenges that are also coming with it, as we can imagine with privacy or with talent shortage, technology challenges, all these combined in many ways, as much as fast as we see the innovation in AI, we are also seeing a lot of companies are struggling with the adoption or implementation. So we'd like to hear from our panel, what are the key challenges that you see in overall AI vision and journey, and particularly in your industry or company? And how do you think the industry, government, and professionals should plan to handle it? and what are your plans to strategize around it in your company? And I would like to start with Carl.
Yeah, so we're a franchise organization. And as such, one of the biggest struggles we have is who can do what with what data, because we're not one company. And as such, we need to always keep in mind who should do what, since it's very important to us, again, that we don't stray into any ethical gray zones. But also, we, of course, want to serve our customers optimally. So we always need to keep very, very close watch on, so we don't have the wrong people or the wrong part of the organization modeling privacy regulated data, for example, that we don't work with customer profiles in the wrong way, that we don't. It's a big problem, since it means that some of our initiatives that go throughout the value chain, and we mentioned, for example, NLP before, which is a central capability we built up a couple of years ago, but that we're now realizing we need to clone into all our franchisees in order to enable them to use it optimally. So it's a big challenge to make sure that we can orchestrate that landscape as one without straying into any legal or ethical problems around privacy. And another big challenge, I would say, that we are facing is federation versus centralization, where we realize that centralization brings many advantages, but it's also not feasible as a strategy for us, at least. So we need to find ways of orchestrating, creating those common platforms, those code repositories, those the management of algorithms, but without limiting or circumscribing the ability for the parts to work efficiently with AI and analytics. So so those, I would say, they are connected, and they are the two big challenges that we're trying to create answers to.
Thank you, Carl, very much so. And as a follow-up, I would also like to hear from you. When you mentioned the centralization versus decentralization challenges, it also kind of leads towards more collaboration. And so, it's more of a handshake than spot on one place versus other. How are you handling the collaboration within the industry and within your company?
So we changed. Up until quite recently, we viewed IKEA as a diamond. We were always saying we're one system, and it was a closed system, essentially. A couple of years ago, we realized that we needed to break that diamond apart and create an OpenX instead. So we today see that on one side, we have our most important partners, the customers that we work with together to deliver value efficiently. On the other side, we have our partners and our suppliers, who are the other side of that OpenX. And in the middle, we as IKEA, we act as a network, basically connecting the two in the most efficient way. And this is something that really has affected how we work with data too, because we see it really as our role to be an integration point in many cases, but also to be able to assemble the things we get from our suppliers, be it platforms, be it solutions, and then in a sustainable DevOps way, make sure that we can deliver those digital products efficiently. And it's a journey. We are probably running around 10 to 20 AI-powered digital products now that are centrally orchestrated but federatedly built. But in reality, we would have to be in a situation where we had five or 10 times that number to really encompass the scope that is today being in some way or form touched by AI and data.
Thank you, Carl. And Marina, if you want to share your thoughts on this.
Yes. And well, from the privacy point of view, it's not a problem for us since it's a new issue we have to cope since the beginning of telephony. We've always coped with very sensible personal data. So we have already in place a whole of privacy structures and rules and experts. So this is not a big issue. I think that the point of centralizing versus decentralizing the development of solutions or access to data is something which is anyway a big challenge. Even if you solve the privacy issues, then you have like it seems absurd, but the more you centralize the competencies and the place where you develop AI solution, the more integrated the company becomes, because you have to put everyone around the same table in order to speak with that center that takes care of developing AI. While if you leave any department to develop their own solutions, AI, the risk is that you get somehow, you duplicate things, you interpret in a different way the meaning of the data, and you end up by not being able to even to speak between different functions of the company, because you end up with a different view of the situation. So there are advantages and disadvantages in both these solutions.
Sure. Thank you, Marina. And Marco, glad you made it back. If you want to share your thoughts, we are talking about the challenges of AI in organizations and in your particular industry.
Yeah, I was able to hear. I'll carry on with my camera on. Tell me if that makes a problem. Yeah, I share some of the things that Carl was mentioning from the IKEA perspective, and what you were also introducing, in a sense of the, if you want, the polarity that exists, especially between the pharma industry, between transparency and privacy, right? It's a very difficult balance to find in our industry. As you can imagine, it's extremely sensitive data we're talking about in healthcare. But on the other side, transparency increase the opportunity, right, for discovery, for insights, for innovation, right? So that it's an important debate, I would say, that is constantly happening in the industry. Another related topic, which I can see also being a game changer, it's eventually another polarization, if you want, which is between interoperability on the other side and agility on the other. And by that, I mean, we are not an industry which was born data-centric, right? We were pharma-centric, right? Science-centric. And therefore, data has not been at the core center of our mindset and culture, I will say. So how can we make our organization truly interoperable, right? That requires a lot of governance, right? That requires a lot of strict rules and so on. But that at the same time can be a disabler, if you want, of agility, right? Because you won't do enough to give enough agility to the different part of the organization. So that, again, polarization. So first, privacy versus transparency. Second, interoperability versus agility. And third, I personally see a lot of interest. I don't think that's just pharma, but overall, especially in the commercial analytics aspects of things, is how do you put together the power of unbiased analytics, right? Which is what you're looking for eventually. So data-driven analytics. How do you combine that with business insights, right? That's an interesting challenge I'm always finding, because I'm the first one to say that the data science solution that myself and my team provides should never, ever be copied and pasted into the decision-making process, right? There should be always a business understanding of it, right? And the business filter of it. How much is that filter? How strong should that filter be, right? For me, that's $1 million question, because on one side, you want to potentially bring this experience that is not quantifiable, right, into a model, into data and so on. But on the other side, you don't want to unbias too much your decision, right? You want your decision to be truly data-driven. So how do you embed, in other words, if you want, data science into the decision-making process? That's something where I find also pretty interesting. I will not say challenge, but an interesting debate to have, or that we usually have in our organization. Yeah.
Great point. Thank you, Marco. And certainly your AI and your insights are as good as your data. So I like the point on data bias. I think that's another interesting problem to solve across industries. And speaking of which, I wanted to hear from Eva, what are your thoughts about these challenges? And do you see those as roadblocks or more as enablers, and especially from technology company like Snowflake's perspective?
Yeah, so I want to actually touch on something that Marina has also said around, the challenges that exist. I'm a bit cynical about it because I think we get really excited about AI and all these possibilities and the robots taking over the world. But most people still push Excel spreadsheets back and forth, right? Like there's this big gap between what's possible technically and what's possible given where we are as an organization, whoever that might be. So I think we need to find a balance with pursuing the really good and new things that we can do with data and finding new opportunities that way, but also moving everyone along the spectrum so that we don't have half the organization stuck in Excel nightmare land and the other half doing really cool future stuff. But really, finding that balance and making sure that we make data accessible, we share data, we democratize data across the organization. And that's where we also then probably reduce the issues around, biases in data and this whole data ethics challenge, because the more voices we have in the process, the more we have people represented. And I think looking at some of the things that come up in the news every now and then around products that fail to take into account potentially half the population, speaking as a woman here, it just shows that there was something in the process that just failed to take account of that. And when those biases are baked into algorithms, it can lead you from where you wanted to go to really, really far away further down the road. But I think while it feels like a roadblock in the short term, because you have to consider more opinions and more voices, and you have to take maybe a few extra steps, I think in the long run, it really pays off because your customers and your suppliers, your partners, everyone in your business ecosystem will have a lot more trust in you as an organization and in your products, and they will embrace that, because these days with social media and a lot more transparency, all these mistakes bubble up very quickly, and you don't want to be at the receiving end of these social media shitstorms. But if somebody finds your product really good, you also have the opportunity to find so many fans that speak for it. So I would say in the short term, it probably feels like a roadblock, but in the long term, the investment into doing things right and in an ethical way that is, transparent and involves different people and voices, I think it's really worth it.
Excellent points. Thank you, Eva. Now, we continue to hear that AI and data are more and more becoming a corporate asset. How can we approach this asset to quantitatively recognize it and make sure that it is accounted for in our business valuation and strategy? How is your company or overall industry, in your view, is looking at it? And I would like to start with Mark on this side.
Yeah, great question. I don't know if we are potentially doing that as it should be, but I definitely think that there is the intention and there are paths that we are putting in place in order to get there. And for me, there are two key components that are important for achieving what you mentioned, right? In order to, if you want to exploit the value of data, right? To exploit the value of, I was here in one of the previous conversation of the new oil, right? Which is definitely worth a lot of resources. And for me, these two components are, on one side, you need to have your AI and data science being in the co-creation part of things. So don't take it as, again, a technology and so on, but you should have your solutions of AI solutions should be truly being co-created together with the business expertise, with the SME, whatever they are, right? So it should be another component of a co-creation model. But then, if as much as important is the co-creation, I'm always mentioning it is important the co-decision. So the importance of having AI expert at the decision table, right? Sitting at the decision table, right? Sometimes you think as the AI design is something which is a back office type of service or work, and they give you something, a piece of software, a reports, a slide or something, and someone else needs to take a decision. I think I myself being a data scientist, I think we should earn a seat at the decision table, right? Because we know better than anyone whatever analytics we provide how meaningful they are, what risk there could be in the decision making, right, of such a process, right? What kind of things we should potentially enable for the business. And on that, I think there is a bit of a chicken and egg, right? So the business should give the opportunity to the scientist or this type of profile to be sitting at this table, but we also should prove that we can actually drive value for that. Okay.
Great points. Thank you, Marco. And Marina, your thoughts?
Well, I think that if you're able to perform a good data strategy, that will pay for by itself because it's so powerful. We've seen that it can bring like more sustainability, more energy savings, and taking away things. One of the problems in the industry in general is that when you want to do something better, you add things, while we should move to a different paradigm that to do things better, we should remove things. And this is very difficult to get away with in the company, to get people convinced that to get better, only designers know that. Designers, perfect. The more you take away, the more designers are happy. But normally managers and departments, they want to add, they want more, but we should go in the opposite direction. And data will help very much doing so. So the challenge is more cultural in this way, but it was a previous question. And so I think that data will give so much benefit by themselves that's probably will come naturally without the need to formalize and is it as an asset.
Good point, Marina. And it reminds me of Porter's great remark that culture eats strategy. So certainly cultural change and adoption is a big part of it. And would like to hear, Carl, your thoughts on this topic as well.
Yeah, I think valuation of data is absolutely central. I think we are brutally under investing in our basic infrastructure because we have a very, very hard time today showing how that kind of fundamental uplift of capabilities, I'm sure Eva would agree, but that kind of fundamental uplift of capabilities translates into value. Because today we have built up systems that are very good at evaluating the shiny stuff, the initiatives, when we build an algorithm or when we create even a cognitive system that can do something. Super simple to look, what's the marginal contribution of that? But most of the things we're doing today, we can't do really, because we don't have the fundamentals in place. We don't have data management to the right level. We're not doing information management properly. We don't have the data platforms that can really enable it. And the reason why we underinvest there is because we're not valuing our data assets as assets, which means that it's very, very hard to show when the value of a data set has gone up. So I'm sure everyone has been in the situation where you try to make the case for we should raise the quality of this data set, and we should raise the quality of a certain area of data or in a domain. And the question is why? And the answer is actually that it will contribute to everything that's built on that. So it's 100 small contributions, but that can be very hard to show because just showing that for one initiative or one thing may eat up the value that thing brings if you're going to create a new KPI or something just to show it for that one. So this is something I've been thinking of and working on quite a lot. And I think the key thing to understand is we're never going to get to a place where we value data correctly. Never, ever, ever. But what we can shoot for, and what I'm shooting for, is something where cardinality rules. So higher is better, and lower is worse. Because then, even by getting there, and again, then we can set the value as in a proper way, and we will have to calibrate constantly. But if we can get to that point, we can also see, are things we're doing actually increasing the value of our data? Or are we doing initiatives that have very little effect on the usability, the value that is being created from data sets. Because a lot of the things we do, especially when we try to be holistic, we're working with data that in ways that actually don't enhance the value significantly, because no one or nothing is really dependent on it. And this is something you often see in metadata initiatives, for example, where we do MDM on areas and we invest huge amounts of money to manage the metadata of data assets that have no real value uplift as a result of it. So yeah, I think this is really, really central.
Great remarks. Thank you, Carl. And I know we are near the end of our session time. I'd like to hear one more round on our cultural change issue from our panelists, that adopting AI, implementing or being innovative with AI needs across the board collaboration and adoption. How do you see the culture affecting this journey? And how is your company or your industry and clients are handling this issue? So Eva, wanted to hear from you. What do you see as your perspective across your clients or industries?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I would say that data and AI really need to become part of the fabric of the organization, every aspect. It needs to become very natural to ask for data and to check what the data says before making a decision. That needs to become normal, and that means that you need to lead with that approach from the top, but it also needs to be championed bottom up. And as part of that, what I would recommend is to really encourage people to use data, but to also reward and recognize that. Because it's one way to say, well, one thing to say to people, please do this, but if there's no real reward in it, we all want some sort of incentive, and it could be just something that's gamified. So making it part of what they do, and then coming up with, innovative approaches to data and AI. That's a really important part, I think, of building a true data culture where people embrace it, it becomes natural, and they want to do more of it.
Thank you, Eva. And Giuseppe, your remarks on that?
Shahidul, we are late, so I will not answer to you. I want to thank every speaker of yesterday and today, because you all talked about people and culture. So you all confirmed to me that today, now, it's the moment to work on it. We are doing something. I will let you know maybe the next year, but hope to see you all here in Milan.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Giuseppe.
I don't want to push you guys. Sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to push you. Yes, we are done with the program, but we are still here. Nobody's pushing us. There is no speaker waiting. So now it's time for everybody to talk. If somebody is in a hurry, I'm still having time for you to serve you.
Thank you, Musin. Thank you for giving us some extra time. So I wanted to go around the table. Maybe Marco, your remarks on the culture issue and also your closing remarks.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think I was mentioning about the culture issue in terms of the co-decision that was mentioned before. Another element I would like maybe to highlight on is that sometimes when we think about data or AI and data science in this type of environment, at least again, in the commercial aspects of things, many people think like almost is like putting a new software or a new hardware, like as an IT project where, and I'm talking here also from expectation management point of view, right? You need to give a timeline, you need to give deadline, these are the resources, that's what I'm gonna explain and so on. Well, I'm always describing personally, actually my AI work as a bit like a clinical trial experiment. If you give me an AI project, I can tell you when I can start, I can tell you, okay, what resources I need, but the timeline, I'm gonna give you the timeline by when I'm gonna have my trial readout, right? I will not be able to tell you if my trial readout is going to be successful or is going to be unsuccessful. That will come out during that day. And again, I think we also from a cultural point of view, people need to think that they need to invest into this type of environment. If they're willing to invest with the right mindset and expectation that there could be a lot of learnings that needs to be done, just not to say there could be failures. And that's okay, actually. So the culture should be really a learning by failing, because that's the only way I think an organization can really grow in these aspects, right? And it's not going to be any super short-term impact, but usually it requires times, right?
Excellent points, Marco. And Marina, your thoughts and your closing remarks?
I believe that the cultural issue is really key, and I already said it during my talk, etc. And in the company, we are doing a very huge and capillary training of everyone, giving the basics of everything, of digitalization, of automation, artificial intelligence, data visualization, and the change in the way of working, really, really huge. And in this sense, the European community also helps with support, with platforms, with contents as well. So it's really something that can be done with not too much investment, even in small companies. And I think that this is somehow bottom up and goes up. On the day-by-day level, I think that it's important to involve we already said it so many times. So to involve the whole stakeholders of a project since day zero. So everybody understands what really means to go. And the first AI project should be done slowly. You have to walk at the pace of the slowest. Otherwise, you go nowhere. If you walk like this, then the next project will arrive faster. That's what I think, and that's also my final remarks. I think that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. And Carl, your thoughts and closing remarks.
Yeah, so I think culture is absolutely pivotal to this, and at least in my space, and it's different in different industries, because the leadership and the people who are in the companies differ because you've grown up from different places. In IKEA, we've grown out of retail and design, basically. That's what we know. So most of my peers, when I talk to CEO or the senior management, they've never ever taken a course in data or anything resembling anything here. To them, I can tell you how many times I've had the kind of conversation, why on earth did you make that decision? And their answer is, what should I have done differently? And I say, yeah, either you should have taken data into account, or you should have involved me. And they said, but data doesn't play any role in this. And it can be something that is totally built on AI or something else, but they just don't understand or know. So data literacy for me is an absolute central part. And I think it's something where we all need to work together. It's something where it can't be, the data or technology organization teaching the business or something like that. We need to get to a point where the company as a whole decides to increase the data literacy. And as we do that, we also need to increase the business literacy in the technology side. So we get to an agreed on baseline where everyone understands, so what is the company doing? And a part of that is digital data, AI. And I think we need to treat it a bit like we do finance today. We would never accept that a manager or a director came in and said, I don't understand budgeting. Someone else has to do budgeting for me. It's not something I do. We would never accept that. But we accept that people do it exactly the same thing when it comes to digital data, AI. And we need to get away from that. And we need to say, okay, how do we upskill you guys to a point where an essential part of your role as a manager or a decision maker, or just a coworker, that you understand the role data plays. You don't need to program Python or know how to set up a Snowflake database, but you need to know how to make the right decisions, or at least seek the right help. So I think for me, that's the big culture shift we need to have. And it's a culture shift that goes both ways. It's not only business learning about digital, it's digital learning about business, and together forming that foundation. So thank you guys for a really interesting conversation. And yeah, thanks for good facilitation, Shahidul.
Thank you, Carl, for the wonderful remarks. And I want to thank our panel for a great conversation. and sharing your expertise and your insights. Thank you, Carl, Eva, Marina, Marco, and Giuseppe. And thank you, Musin and Eva, for organizing this and giving us the extra time. And thank you all for joining. Back to you, Musin.
My pleasure. Thank you. Just one last thing. I have somebody with a question. The last thing, I think. Yes, Marco from Snowflake. If he has any question, Marco.